Have you had any comments on your new glasses?
Not very many. I've wore basically this style of frame for the last, well, probably about 10 years now. So most people don't even notice there's any difference. The difference is just it's just to me more special.
Good.
But,
I thought of tracking them down here again just to have a look at them in person. So I went back to the Luna's website because do you remember the first time we spoke? I said, "Oh wow, there's actually like a reseller or a stockist here in this tiny town that I'm living in at the moment in Germany."
Right.
Which is pretty coincidental. I mean, it was almost too good to be true because the town is like less than 3,000 people.
Oh,
but
wow.
I went back to the website and it was just that they showed the same pin for your current location as to where their stockists are.
Oh. Nice. So, well, I actually learned something going into my, the designer that was selling these frames. It's not Lunar, it's Lenore.
No way.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So, anyway.
I'm kind of glad to hear that as well because I actually, during the week, I ended up in a town which did have one of the stockists. So I went into the glasses shop and had a look around the walls, but I couldn't spot them. And I didn't ask, firstly, because my German's not that great. And and now I'm kind of glad I didn't because I would have mispronounced it anyway. Sounds kind of French.
Yeah, it does. Just, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they're a German company, though.
How did you find out the pronunciation of it?
Oh, my, the designer that I went in and picked up my frames corrected me. I was speaking with him. So.
Okay. I might ask a German person just to double check.
And maybe he's embellishing it and it's not actually Lenore.
That's what I'm thinking.
It's possible. It's just I don't know. He's kind of like a hipster type person. So maybe he was just trying to be a little snobbish about it.
Okay. I'll report back on that.
Okay.
Do you listen to any podcasts that do follow up each week before they get on with the show?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, because I thought we could add it in because occasionally I do have things to bring back from previous shows I would like to just re-mention or correct or clarify.
Sure.
All right, firstly, I'm just going to make 2 corrections. They're my only follow-up topics is correcting things I've said which were wrong.
Okay.
Firstly, High Sierra does have iMessages in the cloud. So when we were talking about it on a previous show, we were talking about whether it came in Mojave or if it was already in High Sierra. And on the spot, I went into System Preferences, iCloud, and there was no messages checkbox, so I assumed it wasn't there. But unlike on the iPhone, you actually find it in the settings for messages. So it is there.
Right.
And it seems to work okay.
Yeah, I messed around with it a little bit. I dug into the settings as well and turned it on. But I'm not on my computer. Actually, the only time I've ever on my computer is to record this podcast, so I haven't actually noticed if it's doing anything for me or not.
That's the only time you're using the MacBook?
Other than that, I pretty much use my iPad for everything if I'm just browsing the web or whatever.
Cool, all right. You're going to have a lot to say on our first topic then.
All right.
But just before we get to that, I need to make one more correction.
Okay.
Face ID isn't getting a sideways unlock, unfortunately. I said that.
That's disappointing for me.
Yeah, me too. Because mostly when I'm in Safari and I need to autofill things and it wants Face ID, you have to bring the phone up. It's a very minor annoyance, but it is there.
Right. Is that something that they've just decided not to implement, or was that just something you misheard initially?
It was a misinterpretation of a feature, and I'm racking my brain to try and figure out what that feature was. Something in iOS 12 is going orientation agnostic. It's not Face ID, though.
Okay. Interesting.
All right. Cool. Well, let's get on with the show. And for anyone who hasn't listened before, we discussed roughly the top 5 posts on r/Apple subreddit for the last week or 2. And the very first topic is Apple advertises the iPad as being a computer replacement, and yet if I forget my password, it requires a computer to reset. And I think my first reaction, and a lot of people's reaction, was, what the hell, you know? But then when you start to think about it a little more, there are a lot of things in tech, not just the iPad, that require another device to help you reset it, such as a computer or the current iMacs with their secure boot partitions, or there are a whole load of things, basically.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily that needing another computer to reset your iPad is an indication of the iPad not being to the full computer tier status yet, but there's definitely some issues that need to be overcome. And I believe there was spoken about in this comment section somewhere. I'm scrolling through trying to find it, but they need to have a version of Xcode for the iPad. Because if you can't develop for the iOS platform on iOS, I mean, it's you can't say it's a fully featured operating system yet.
Can you imagine Xcode running on an iPad less than 12 inches, though? Anything but the biggest one, it would be a nightmare. I mean, you've got the simulator off to the side and then all the workspaces.
They'd have to totally rework how Xcode is laid out for it to work on iOS, I believe. But yeah, I agree. You'd definitely want the most screen real estate as possible. I don't even like developing on my 15-inch MacBook Pro because I feel like it's too small. So, but it could be done. They have the what is it? Xcode, the playgrounds, Swift playgrounds on iPad. Yeah, and you can do very, very basic development on there. More of just an educational tool than an actual productivity tool, but it works. And they've got some really nifty autocomplete and drag and drop things built into that could totally be implemented in a more professional setting to make developing on a smaller touchscreen feasible.
And there are some IDEs for iPad, aren't there? I think Pythonista is one.
Yep, I've played around with it. I don't say I use it, but it definitely works. So I'm not sure how Pythonista actually got around the rules. I believe there's a rule for not being able to execute arbitrary code within iOS apps, isn't there?
That's right. The rule is something like if it. I mean, I'm not a developer, so I don't really know the lingo that well. But if it's not bundled in a package, like if it can be unpackaged or whatever that the description should be, then it's allowable.
Yeah, I know they had recently reworked some of the rules to allow for education. I'm not like education development apps. I'm not sure if Pythonista, I guess it falls under that because it hasn't been pulled from the App Store in the last couple of years. But yeah, it's a fully featured Python compiler is not the right word because you don't compile Python, but you can write and run Python within the app, which is really cool.
I've actually found the bullet points here that apply. Actually, this is in the post thanks to Care Kano. So Apple now explicitly allows executable code to be downloaded and run by a programming environment intended for use in learning how to program, subject to no more than 80% of the viewing area can be taken over by executable code, and the app must make clear that the user is in a programming environment. The app cannot create, store for selling, or distributing code or apps, of course, and all source code must be viewable and editable. This is what I was trying to think of. No pre-compiled libraries.
Right. Which actually, if you're a professional developer, that really hurts you, but for education purposes, not necessary. But, okay. Pythonista does something really cool. I'm not sure if this is to get around some of these rules about screen real estate being taken up. Because I know within the app, yeah, there's like a limited area that your app can be sized to. I assume it's because of that rule. But you can save your programs to your springboard or home screen. And what it does is it uploads your program to the internet and then puts a bookmark to whatever page that's hosting your code on your home screen. And so you hit it and you launch basically into a Safari window. And then your program takes up, the whole screen real estate.
Wow, yeah, that's quite a workaround.
Yeah.
Pretty good, though.
Yeah, and it's kind of a way to make apps on your device. Of course, you're writing in Python, which is kind of weird for an iPad, but it works. And it's a fun thing to play around with, more as a tech demo than something useful.
So when it comes to your use of the iPad, you said you don't use your MacBook that much except for doing this. Do you do any work on there, or is it mostly just content consumption at the moment?
I would definitely say mostly consumption. The closest thing to work I do on my iPad is probably like writing emails. Other than that, I have a Windows tower that I use for development purposes when I'm at home, which it's 3 27-inch monitors, so it's hard to, even though I way prefer working on Mac OS to Windows, jumping from 3 27-inch monitors down to my 15-inch and maybe an additional 27 if I plug one of my monitors into my Mac Pro. I just enjoy my layout a lot better working on Windows, so I've been using that primarily for the last few months.
Yeah, right. Another thing, just back on the post for a sec, I was thinking about is that if you take this post about requiring a computer to reset it to the next level, and coming back from having reset your iPad, or say you've wiped both your iPad and your MacBook, which one then is the easiest one to get back up and running? And for me, it's definitely going to be the iPad, because you can just sign in to iCloud and it will pull basically everything that can't be synced. It'll pull it back from your iCloud backup. And usually within an hour it's usable, and then within a couple more hours, everything that was on there is back on there. Whereas with the computer, if you're at home, then sure, that could happen. But if you're traveling, more than likely it's not going to be that easy.
Yeah. Now, especially, I mean, was it iOS 5? We got away from having to plug your devices into iTunes on first boot, which I thought that update in itself kind of signaled Apple's move into the post-PC, consumer environment, where these devices were being seen as standalone products and not accessories that required a computer to be used. I'm trying to quote myself here because iOS 5 came out when I was big into my tech YouTube channel. I made a whole video about Apple's move into post-PC. But that was, what, we're on iOS 12 now? So that was 7 years ago?
Yep.
But, yeah. I mean, I guess coming from pre-iOS 5, I really feel like these are standalone devices. But maybe someone coming into the environment now and not knowing where we came from could look at these and say, well, you're not 100% removed from desktop operating systems. So I don't know. I think arguments can be made either way. I think for the most part, for general consumers at least, how often are you going to need to reset your iPad? So I think these can justifiably be called post-PC devices, standalone computers.
Or as one of the commenters say, what's a computer? That's Wolfram Beta. It's amazing how effective that ad was, because it's still being quoted today. And
yeah.
That was from February, I think. That's quite a while ago.
I wonder if it
divided people.
I wonder if that was more or less intentional. Like they intended that advertisement to be so divisive to get people to argue and continue talking about it. Or if that was just them being cheeky.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
So pushing on to the next topic, and it's something we went over quite a bit, well, the general topic area last show, which is Apple Maps. And just in time, Apple Maps has announced that they're rebuilding maps from the ground up. Did you have a read through of the article on TechCrunch, which is a horrible website, or did you listen to Panzerino on the talk show?
I didn't get a chance to listen to the talk show, and I didn't read the TechCrunch article, but I did read some similar articles on like 9 to 5 and Mac Rumors.
Well, it's probably just as good as 9 to 5 on 9 to 5, really. And you saved yourself from that terrible website, which is TechCrunch. So basically, Apple's been driving cars around for quite a few years now, 3 or 4 years. They were probably first noticed in 2015, if my research was correct. And there were all sorts of rumors about what they could be doing, but is it Occam's razor that says the most obvious solution is the right one?
Yep. Yep.
Good. And what they were doing is mapping. So there were high-tech cars with LiDAR and an array of DSLRs, a Mac Pro bolted in the boot, and a ton of SSD storage to store all these high-res photos with GPS coordinates and 3D imaging and all that. And the only thing I got out of this whole article was, that's a shit ton of SSDs. How much would that cost?
Yeah.
I can't even afford like a 1 TB SSD in my MacBook. And they're probably just, churning through a dozen of them every hour.
Yeah, I can't imagine all the data they're collecting.
Yeah, it's insane.
What's interesting to me is if they're driving around with all these high-resolution cameras, I would have expected some kind of Street View equivalent to be launched alongside these updated maps, but it doesn't seem like it includes anything like that, at least right now.
Yeah, it wasn't obvious in the article what they were doing with the images, besides the actual, what would you call them, the workers that are going to be editing and correcting the maps and based on user feedback. I know that they're going to have access, but whether those images come to us, that's not too clear.
I would really hope so. I think Street View is still the biggest area where Apple is lacking behind Google. The flyover is not a comparable replacement to Street View when you're trying to get a feel of an area or locate a shop or something you're going to be visiting.
Another interesting thing in the article, that they said that traffic data, you might remember from last show, it actually comes from partners, not from people running maps on their iPhone at the moment.
Interesting. So I guess that means you were right.
Well, I specifically said it was coming from TomTom, and I've no idea, and I didn't look it up afterwards.
Right.
But yeah. So it's going to be coming from iPhones now, but it's also going to be private, so it's not going to track user 10137 from A to B. It's just going to take a small snippet of that user's journey and then combine it with other users to then map out the total traffic flow between those points.
My biggest takeaway from this article is the difference in Apple's approach to mapping versus Google's, whereas Google, pretty much with all their products, especially recently, just throws machine learning and AI at whatever they're doing to try to improve it. Apple's really going to have like a team of curators looking at satellite images and user reports and really manually going in and correcting and making sure everything is accurate.
Yeah, that's right. Google tries to get their users to fix the data, I guess, as well. And yeah, Apple's going to have people doing it there, which is, I'm not sure if that would make it faster or slower. It's definitely going to be faster than what they had before, which was collect the data from the users, send it to the third party checks it, sends it back to Apple, and 3 months later you've got the problem fixed.
Right.
So at least that's going to be gone. But whether it's as fast as Google.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, if we're going to talk about Apple's speed at all and rolling out improvements in maps, the fact that they've been driving around for years and are just going to roll out the entire state of California with the release of iOS 12, and then gradually the rest of the US over the next year, pretty indicative of how slowly they're taking this process. So
yeah, the only hope I take from that is that this sort of project, I guess, once you've laid the groundwork, or you've done the groundwork of setting up how you're doing it, the processes, how we hire people, how we buy cars, once that's kind of, you've got that down pat, it's probably going to be a lot quicker to ramp that up to a much higher scale and start getting people to Australia or other countries.
Yeah, has Apple been spotted in any other countries yet? Or do we know for sure how soon any kind of map updates would roll out across the world?
No, there's no word of it yet. No, I certainly haven't read anything about Apple cars in other countries.
It's really interesting their approach to these mapping vehicles, because I remember the initial articles in 2015, when people first started spotting these cars with sensors on them and realizing they were registered to Apple. It was right about the same time the Project Titan rumors were kind of at a peak, and everyone assumed these were self-driving car sensors they were testing. But it seems like after people started realizing these vehicles are registered to Apple, Apple started identifying them. Like, I'm just looking at this TechCrunch article now, and they have a photo of one of their mapping vehicles and actually says Apple Maps on the side. But that wasn't the case when they started this project. So I wonder if that was some kind of corrective measure to cover up all the rumors that sprouted up in 2015 about self-driving cars, or why their approach changed in the last few years for them to start identifying themselves and not just anonymously driving around with these sensors.
Maybe they just didn't want to set expectations too early, too high, too early.
I guess that's true, yeah.
Coming.
Yeah, if people saw Maps vehicles driving around 4 years ago, they would have expected something by now.
Or maybe they didn't want to compromise a contract signing with TomTom.
Oh, it's possible. So, but yeah, looking at this vehicle, the sensors on top are the exact same sensors that we saw 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm sure that's what it was, and that wasn't them testing self-driving car technology, which rumors of that have kind of died down in the last few years.
Yeah, they certainly have.
So,
one interesting line I thought from the article is that Apple has licensed all the typefaces that are on subway systems, like the New York City subway uses Helvetica. I'm not sure if you have to license Helvetica. Probably from Adobe, actually. But they've actually taken out licenses for all the public transport systems around the world to make sure that it matches in the app to what's being shown. And also that the line numbers are in the same order as on the platform signs.
How's
that for thoroughness?
That's the attention to detail that only Apple brings to the table.
Yeah.
So,
one other line, which was kind of a throwaway in the article, but I thought it was really interesting, is that search is also being revamped to make sure that you get more relevant results, like results for things that are on the correct continent than what you got before, which has always been a frustration for me, because you can do searches for things and it'll just show a similar sounding thing in the wrong country, and you're like, oh, you know where I am.
Yeah. I mean, this wasn't as much of an issue for me. Maybe it's because Apple Maps searches the US first, so I haven't had this issue. But it's funny that this update would roll out when it did, because it seems like in the last couple months, I've been seeing more and more recommended videos on YouTube of people, especially in Canada, complaining about Apple Maps and CarPlay. Like if they're searching for a coffee shop, like a well-known coffee shop where it's kind of like a Starbucks where it'd be on every corner, but it recommends a shop, all the way on the other side of the US instead of the one a block down the street from them. I've been seeing a lot more of those recently, and it's kind of been news to me because I haven't been experiencing that issue, but apparently it's going to get corrected, so it's just funny timing for me.
And then on the other hand, you've got Google Assistant, which you can ask, where is X? It'll find it near you, and you can also ask, say, what are the opening hours of this building inside this building? Which is a reference to Accidental Tech Podcast, if anyone listens to that one, which is just crazy to be able to get that level of details, and also via voice.
Yeah. Google's Assistant is still so far ahead of Siri. My only hopes for Siri is that this when this Shortcuts app finally rolls out, it's like really in depth, and I can make some pretty advanced queries, because I feel like I'm gonna have to, if I want to have a high level functionality in Siri, I'm gonna have to write all the queries myself. So,
have you got onto the beta for Shortcuts yet?
Is there a separate beta program for the Shortcuts app?
Yeah, there is.
Oh, I haven't even heard about this.
All right. Well, I'm not sure when you'll get access if you sign up now, but yeah, you should probably have a look at it.
Okay. How do you sign up for that? Just through Apple's website?
I assume so. I haven't done it myself.
Oh, okay.
Here I am telling you to do it, and I haven't even done it.
Well, I'll have to look into it, because that's like the biggest feature of iOS 12 I've been excited to play with. So
yeah, all right, cool.
I'll sign up and hopefully have something to report back about it in 2 weeks.
All right, I'll do the same. All right, while you go and sign up, let me just move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Which is that Apple's mini 18-watt USB-C charger may be real after all. So there have been rumors about Apple producing basically what looks very similar to the current 5-watt charger that's included in the box with the iPhone, except it's going to be 18 watts, which is 3 and a bit more, and USB-C. So USB-C will be a female USB-C in the actual adapter, and then the other end of the cable will be Lightning. And I think the reason, actually I'm not too sure that definitely what the reason would be people are excited about this, except that the iPad charger, whether it's the 29 watt, I think, or the other one, is kind of a brick compared to the iPhone charger. So if you had 18 watts in this little unit, that's pretty nice device.
I mean, that was definitely one of the bigger criticisms when the iPhone 10 came out, compared to like flagship Android phones on the market, is that most phones come with fast chargers now, whereas this $1,000 iPhone was being bundled with still basically the cheapest, slowest charger that Apple makes. So I don't know if this is necessarily just a response to that criticism that was kind of all over the headlines last year, or what. I really expect Apple to ditch the Lightning port in the next couple of years entirely.
That's a very controversial opinion.
Is it? I just saw an article.
I'd be hugely surprised.
I wish I had it pulled up. There was an article I read probably a week ago that said that Apple was trying to have the Lightning port removed on the iPhone 10 and weren't able to get around a couple complications in time. So the iPhone 10 still has a Lightning port.
My money is on 0 ports before the iPhone gets the USB-C port.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind
that
we're not going to see USB-C.
Oh, sorry. I must have misheard what you said.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying that Apple's going to be, that I'm expecting them to remove all ports entirely in the next year or two.
Oh, right. No, I'm with you there.
Okay. So they need to stop focusing on this USB-C fast charger and get AirPower working. That's what I want to see.
AirPower. When will we see?
My money's on we're not going to see it until the next iPhone launch, and it's going to be released alongside the new iPhones.
And also alongside the new case for the AirPods?
I assume so. My bet is on the AirPods case is done. They're just waiting to release it alongside the AirPower charging mat.
Oh, the case has got to be done, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be my money. So we're going to see AirPower and the new case and new iPhones and new iPads September's gonna be a busy month.
Yeah, an expensive month too.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get the new Apple Watch. So
yeah. Maybe with like a more edge-to-edge display than current.
That'd
be nice.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing is basically the big feature for the new Apple Watch.
Did you also hear the rumors about the AirPods Pro, which is just to give a name to the rumor of new AirPods?
I've heard on and off rumors the last year or so that Apple's working on professional headphones that are going to be marketed under their name instead of the Beats name. I don't know the specific AirPod Pro article you're referencing, but I've definitely heard rumors to that effect.
The rumors in the article I read mentioned, I think the 3 features were an always-on Yo Siri, waterproofing, and noise cancellation, and whether they were over the head or still earbuds. I can't remember. Maybe it was both.
I mean, I think we're definitely, well, I don't know. I think we're probably due for an update to AirPods just because it's been a couple years now, but I think they're still, so far ahead of the competition in this price range. There's nothing else that really competes with AirPods.
Has production even caught up to demand yet?
I don't know. I got mine so early on.
I'm pretty sure it has, but
it was
lagged behind for a long time.
Yeah, I think longer than any other product, actually. Like I think it was like 6 or 8 months later, and they're still, weren't caught up, which is unheard of. But yeah, I've seen rumors that they're going to, or they are working on getting touch sensors built into the stem of the AirPods for things like volume control or whatever else. I don't know how true that was, but that's something I've read recently.
I don't think I like that because I'm constantly fiddling with my AirPods to get them to sit differently in my ear, so I do not want them to be touch sensitive. No. As much as I hate the double tap.
Yeah. With the always on or raise to wake Siri without the voice command they've gotten implemented in the Apple Watch now, maybe they'll have something similar built into AirPods.
Yeah, I've got a note to ask you about that later.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it looks like their production's definitely caught up. So they'd pick up today at Apple stores, and yeah, it did take them a very long time to catch up to demand on that.
On a scale from 0 to 10, how big a mess would you rate choosing Lightning over USB-C as the connection in phones and basically everything, every portable device, except laptops, of course? How
big of a mess, like in terms of them having to eventually correct for this in the future?
Yeah, in such problems as, you get an iPhone with a set of headphones, but those headphones don't work with your MacBook.
Right.
Such as having to, when you travel, carry 3 or 4 chargers instead of just 2.
So I think at the time, which would have been 2012, I think, Lightning was an excellent choice versus the 30-pin connector they had been using. And that was pre-USB-C, and Apple worked pretty closely with Intel on the development of USB-C, and they considered Lightning as one of the possible connectors for USB-C. So if they would have gone with that, Lightning would have been an amazing choice, and they would have been so far ahead of the rest of the market. So I think at the time in 2012, Lightning was the correct choice, and the huge uproar it caused switching ports at the time, I think Apple's justified in not trying to switch ports in the future. So I think them sticking with Lightning was the correct choice. And then elaborating on that, every accessory they make, it makes sense for it to work with the single charger and connecting standard that they've developed. So I don't know how Apple could have approached this differently, because I think if they would have released AirPods or the Apple Pencil or anything else with USB-C connectors a few years ago, that would have been ridiculous, and Lightning was the correct choice for all those devices. But when they remove Lightning from the iPhone, they're going to be left with these just accessories that use Lightning at this point, and they are eventually going to have to transition them either to totally wireless as well or USB-C. And my money is on everything's going to be wireless. So I don't necessarily think that they've made the wrong choice getting to this point. I think we're going to have a wireless charging Apple Pencil. We already have the wireless AirPods case coming. The issue of I can't plug my iPhone headphones into my MacBook Pro is going to go away because the iPhone's going to lose that port, and so you're only going to get a wireless option anyway.
So at the moment, we're kind of in a transition, not from Lightning to USB-C, but Lightning to wireless. So the only connector that'll be left then is USB-C. Once all is said and done, maybe in 2020.
Right. Yeah, I think we're going to have USB-C on the Mac. And then other than that, every device is going to be wireless data and wirelessly charged. And so this lightning problem is going to resolve itself without Apple having to go through the headache of changing connectors again.
That's a future I can get behind. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
You brighten my day.
Yeah. I'm glad I can help.
The next topic is very similar. It's a tweet from Mark Gurman. It's, cryptic? You can kind of say it was cryptic. Let me just open the tweet. He's suggesting that AirPower is going to cost $150. So his tweet is, would you pay around $150 for this? Asking for a friend. And then it's a link to Bloomberg article about AirPower. And we've talked about the cost of this before. I think, did you predict $199 as the cost?
I don't remember what I said. I definitely, in my head, I had $199 as like, this is probably the max I think it would be worth. So I can, definitely see myself saying $199. I'm definitely happy with $150. So
yeah. Well, I said it was going to be $99. So yeah, I'm not happy at all. But this has split us right down the middle. So whatever was up for grabs.
The loser had to buy the winner on AirPower, Matt.
We're going to have to just split it down the middle. You can charge your AirPods. I can charge the Apple Watch.
Cut it in half. Ship half to you.
That's right. Or you can have the cable. I'll have the mat.
Oh, there you go. So, I think when you break down just the cost of buying 3 separate Qi fast chargers, and then you add whatever innovation cost on top of that with the devices being able to communicate between each other while they're charging, I think $150 and even my previous $199 is right within the range of what I expect Apple to charge.
What are you paying for your Qi charger to come up with that, though? Because I'm pretty sure you can get them for about $5 each.
You can get standard Qi chargers on Amazon. I definitely have a few cheap ones that are like $15 sitting around the house. But if you want the fast chargers, they're $60, $70, $80 a piece. Like I'm just pulling it up here, like the actual Qi fast chargers that Apple sells on their website from Belkin and let's see here. Here we go. Okay, this one's $50. So you're looking at $50 for a Qi fast charger right now from Apple.
Math checks out.
Yeah. So three of those. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was my argument too, is you'd had 3 of those, you're at $150, and then I put an extra $50 on that for whatever innovation for $200. So yeah, $150 would definitely make me happy.
All right. Well, we'll see that maybe in September then.
My money's definitely on that.
I don't think it's typical for Apple to release anything July and August.
I mean, not since the iPhone 4 was the last thing they released in July. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I don't know. They've done some silent releases in the past where it's just their website updated and now there's a new MacBook Air or something on there.
Yeah, there have been some small spec updates.
I don't think AirPower necessarily deserves a silent release. I think they're gonna talk it up alongside the new iPhones. So
unless they're super embarrassed about the whole thing and they just slip it under there.
Maybe like, what are you talking about? It's already out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No one noticed.
Yeah.
Came out at WWDC.
Yeah. It's like the white iPhone 4 all over again. Do you remember that headache?
Yeah. The one, what did that take, 9 months to come out after it was announced?
Yeah, it was, I think right on 9 months, because it was the spring of the next year. So, and now Apple deliberately holds off colors like this red iPhone 8 they released in the spring.
Yeah. I wonder if we'll get a red 10 at some point.
I don't know. Probably not a red 10. We're so close to the next generation of iPhone coming out. Unless they keep I don't know if they're going to keep the 10 around as a lower price model this year or not. Because there's rumors of the 3 new iPhones they're releasing. Like the 10, the 10 Plus, and a mid-sized LCD panel iPhone as well.
Yeah, normally the ones they keep around are using parts that they have already been making in high quantity, have high yield and low cost. So no, I don't think it would be the 10. I think it would be the older LCD model phones that they keep around.
Yeah. I don't know. So I don't expect to see a red 10, but I think, there's already been rumors that we're going to see a lot of different colors of these new iPhones this year. Orange and blue and...
Yeah, I'll believe it when it happens.
Did you see the pictures of the gold iPhone 10 from Apple's patent applications.
Yeah, and there were some pictures from KGI Securities, that rumor firm, security firm, analytics firm, yeah. They also had some gold pictures.
I mean, there's no doubt that existed now with their patent applications showing pictures of it, but I would have loved to get one. I actually almost got an iPhone 8 when it came out because I liked the gold color so much. So I'm a little disappointed I wasn't able to get the iPhone 10 in that color, but I think we'll probably see it this year.
The reason I've avoided the colored iPhones in the past is that they've nearly always had white bezels on the front, which just can't stand around the screen. But with the 10 and the Red 8 as well, they all have black now. Very nice.
Yeah, I've definitely been in the same boat. And that's why I actually got the black iPhone 10, even though I already knew it when I purchased it that the white had the black front bezel as well. I'd just been in that mindset for so many years of getting the black iPhone. And I don't know, I've kind of regretted it. I wish I would have got the white one now. Mix things up. But yeah, I think we'll see some colors this year.
Speaking of 10, the App Store turns 10, which is the last topic for the show.
That's crazy to me. So.
Remember its birth like it was yesterday. Actually, I don't remember it at all.
Oh, really?
No. I guess either I didn't follow Apple News that closely, or it wasn't that big a deal, because the original iPhone didn't even come out in Australia, so, we didn't really cotton on to it for a little bit later.
Did the iPod Touch come out before the iPhone then, or was the iPod Touch also delayed?
Actually, I think the iPod Touch was just released on in sync with the US.
So, I mean, I remember pre-App Store when Apple was really pushing web apps as the way to go, and you actually went to Apple's website and developers could post their web apps on kind of like this forum on Apple's website, and you could run different apps within Safari, and that was, at the time, they were talking it up as this is the best way to do it, which obviously was never their thoughts because they were working on developing the App Store from the moment the iPhone came out, but...
That's right, it didn't just come out of...
Yeah, it didn't come out of nowhere.
For that. It was planned.
So... Which Apple has a history of marketing whatever their current implementation of a feature as the best way to do it until they come out with a better one. So, but yeah, I mean, I remember the birth of the App Store, and it was pretty incredible. There was a lot of fart apps. That's all I remember. Is when it launched. Is there's 20 different soundboards and a couple decent games.
Eventually, the low effort apps were not accepted anymore, and then we got some decent ones.
Yeah, they've done a pretty good job with curation of their App Store compared to something like Google Play. Even today, most of those low-effort apps get filtered out or removed quickly. Do you remember I Am Rich?
Yeah, the $1,000 button to press?
Yeah, you just paid $1,000 for the app, and it was like a picture of a ruby or something when you opened it up, and that was it.
That's genius.
Yeah, I mean, whoever got in on that, apparently it sold seven copies before it got pulled, so someone made a quick $7,000.
Wow, well worth the time. Minus 30%, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, the time, I mean, you could, actually, I don't know what the Xcode platform looked like in 2008, but as far as time, you're talking 5 minutes, so.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
I was thinking back, I was having a nostalgia trip about, when I used to visit the App Store and the games and things that I used to play. A couple of my favorites. Do you remember Flight Control?
Flight Control,
which is where you had 2 or 3 runways, and then you had to draw on the screen to land planes.
Oh yeah,
in a certain way without them crashing into each other.
Yeah. That's still a classic. Is that still on the App Store? It was the top of the App Store for a long time.
It was, yeah. It was really popular. I did spot. I didn't look into this, but while I was actually looking up screenshots of Flight Control, I saw that it had been pulled in 2015. I didn't go and verify if it had come back or not. But it had been bought by one of those big studios, might have been EA or Zynga or one of those.
Yeah.
But it was an article from 2015, so who knows? Maybe it's back.
Do you remember Tap Tap Revenge?
Oh, that rings a bell. I can't think of the gameplay, though.
It was like Guitar Hero, kind of. It was a rhythm game. Yeah. That was one of my favorites back in, early 2009 is when it came out. January 11th, 2009. So I just went into my purchases and I scrolled all the way down to the bottom of the list in the App Store. So I'm looking at all my original purchases when the App Store launched.
So many of them don't run anymore as well.
Yeah, most of them don't at this point, especially with the dropping 32-bit. That's what killed most of these.
That's right. Do you remember Doodle Jump or Tiny Wings?
Yeah. Doodle Jump's classic. Tiny Wings, I thought, came out in 2010 or 2011.
Yeah, that isn't from early App Store days, but still a classic.
Yeah, Tiny Wings is yeah, it was definitely one of my favorites of the time. And there's still games with similar gameplay now, mimicking that.
Yeah, it's so simple and nice.
Mm-hmm.
It was really done well, and the artwork was amazing, and the music.
Man, I'm just scrolling through this list. Most of these apps are junk. Like free checkers games are just soundboards or faces that open and close their mouth when you make sound through the microphone, or clones.
The fake cigarette lighters or lightsabers.
Do you remember it was a beer one where you could look like you're drinking a beer? Use the accelerometer.
Fake caller.
Yeah, and so many. This is a fake fingerprint reader. You could pretend your phone had a fingerprint reader by pressing on the screen, and it would like make a reject sound or something unless you tapped a certain order first, and then you put your finger on the screen, and it would accept it. You could tell people that you got a fingerprint reader. Oh man, there's not like I was hoping to go through this and find a lot of classics, but I'm not finding very many that I like actually feel nostalgia towards. I mean, Urban Spoon. Yeah. Urban Spoon was kind of a big deal when it came out.
Yeah, Urban Spoon was huge. Well, it still is, except it's owned by another company now. At least in Australia, it's owned by Zomato, and kind of went down the drain pretty quickly.
Yeah, I haven't heard about them in a long time, but Apple even pushed them. Like in the first few years of the App Store, Urban Spoon was always featured in their keynotes as like a prime example of a good app, and haven't seen that in a long time.
You want to quickly tell me about non-Yo Siri on the Apple Watch?
Yeah, sure. It's I've used it a few times, and it seems to work consistently for me when I intend to use it. It also gets accidentally triggered all the time.
Oh no,
yeah.
That's not what I wanted to hear at all.
Yeah. Just like while I'm up and moving and about, if my screen ever comes on just from moving my arm around, and I'm talking, or someone in the area is talking, or there's just noise, Siri will turn on, and then I'll get a buzz on my wrist, and I'll look at my watch, and it'll be Siri saying, "Sorry, I didn't hear that," or whatever. I think there's still time to fine tune it. It reminds me a lot of when I got my first Apple Watch. I feel like I was always accidentally triggering Siri just from like bending my wrist and holding the crown. Siri would go off all the time. And I feel like that has been somewhat mitigated recently. I haven't had that issue. Maybe it's just I've changed how I wear my watch or something, but Siri didn't used to accidentally get triggered anymore, so I'm hoping they'll be able to mitigate that with this no button, no trigger phrase activation as well.
I'm a little bit worried now based on that. I know it's still early days with just a beta, but I expected that they'd somehow come up with a way that Siri isn't just triggered when it hears anything random when the watch face comes on. Because for me, that's pretty much all the time. You know, the watch face is just randomly coming on. I hoped it would be magic, but it doesn't sound like it is. So I'm a little worried, but as I said, it's a beta, so who knows? Yeah,
I think they have time to fix it, and at this point, I feel like the usefulness has outweighed the annoyance because I haven't turned it off yet. So I'm still pushing through, and hopefully we'll see improvement here in the next few betas.
That's good to hear. I'm still waiting for it just to be activated because it seems to be rolling out not on a front-end basis, but on a back-end basis by account. Or
yeah, I wonder if has there been any reports of it like being only in the US, or how are they rolling that out?
That's my suspicion, but I haven't seen anyone say that on Reddit. Maybe I'll make a post in the WatchOS beta subreddit.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that and see. That's interesting to me. I feel like my initial thought was that it was going to be something like they're going to have to tune Siri to detect, all these different dialects and languages, but I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case, actually. It should just be able to activate whenever it hears any sound, within reason.
I thought it might somehow narrow like the direction the sound is coming from or the volume of the voice, to make it clear that the watch is, within a foot or two of the person speaking. Maybe just 1 foot. 2, it could be down by your side, but 1 foot, it's definitely going to be a wrist raise.
Well, either that or Apple needs to hold off on actually bringing up the Siri overlay on the watch screen until they're sure what Siri is hearing is a question for her. Like Siri could be listening but not necessarily taking over your screen and actively responding until it's sure that it's heard a question that needs to be answered. So, I don't know. I trust, maybe too much, but I trust Apple to figure this out the next few months.
Trust in Cupertino.
That's right.
All right, that sounds like a show. Is there anything else that you want to go over?
No, I think that's it.
All right, nice. I'm James of EDM on Reddit and Twitter.
And I'm Jellywoot on Reddit and Twitter.
And we have a Patreon if you'd like to support us, patreon.com/the Apple Show.
All right, well, have a good week, James.
Cheers, you too. Catch you later.